Hello. Today we're going to talk about commission, specifically sales commission and how it works. So if the broker has been hired to sell a property, typically the seller is the one that's going to pay the commission. A problem that you would expect to see on an exam would be something like this. A broker has a listing agreement that states a 6% commission. That's important, 6%. That tells us what percentage we're going to receive is to be paid to the brokerage firm. The sales associate for the brokerage firm lists and sells the property. Again, this is important because sometimes we co-broker property. We'll get into that in a moment. Now, the sales associate is to receive 70% of the total commission. So he has a 30-70 split with his broker. How much will the sales associate receive if she sells the property for $300,000? We take the selling price of $300,000 and times it by 0.06, which is 6%. That gives us $18,000. We take that amount and times it by 0.7, and that gives us $12,600. So in this example, $5,400 stays with the broker, and the sales associate receives $12,600. Now what happens, which is the case many times, if it's co-brokerage? In other words, it's listed by one brokerage and sold by another. Well, these numbers are simply divided in half because typically 50% goes to one brokerage firm, the listing, for example, and 50% goes to the selling. So $9,000 would go to the selling brokerage and $9,000 would go to the listing. The sales associate involved in this scenario would still receive 70%, but of $9,000, only half of the total commission. So if we take the $12,600 that they were going to receive and times it by 0.5 or divide it by 2, either way it's the same thing, that would be $6,300. So each brokerage would receive $9,000, and our sales associate here that receives 70% is going to receive $6,300, and the broker will retain $2,700 in that example. All right, I hope that helps.